Hi, and welcome to episode 85 of the Gridiron Europe podcast. My name is Andre, and with me as always, my co-host Osai.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man? We're missing our other co-host Antoine today, but I think we should manage Osai. With us today, we've got a very special guest. We've got the head coach for the Swedish Junior National Team, Sebastian Brinkenfeldt, with us. Welcome to the podcast, man. How are you doing?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. Really happy to be on the podcast today, and looking forward to today's conversation.
Awesome to have you on. I've heard you actually do listen quite a bit to the pod.
Yeah, I love it. I think you guys are doing a great job. Especially you're spreading the word about Swedish and European football. You're like my single source of updates from the European league, so that's awesome. And I told the side I like his new little venture going with the longer interviews. And yeah, I think it's great that we have two really good podcasts about American football in Europe and in Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, we think it's a lot of fun doing it. Like we're not really experts on much here, but we think it's fun to take a look around Sweden and Europe, and it's a fun venture, and Osaid and I have a lot of fun with it. But today's focus is you, Sebastian. Would you like to tell us a bit about your football background? How did you get started?
Not a lot of people
with
know
football?
that you actually played.
No, I don't know if that's that I look like I haven't played, or that I'm old in the game, although I'm not that old. But kind of going back to the beginning, really where I started, I played a lot of individual sports. So I started off playing golf, which was like my first sport. And it's a really weird sport to start off with because, yeah, it's technically very hard. And I played tennis. I did some aikido. Like I did a bunch of stuff, but I didn't really feel at home in any sport. And then, like one day when I was 12, and this is back in 2004, I kind of came home to my mom and was like, "I'm going to play American football." And I have no idea how this like came about.
How did you find out about the sport? How did you?
Well,
how did that idea pop into your head like that?
My hypothesis is that I've been traveling a lot to the U.S. Like my parents used to work at Scandinavian Airlines, so going abroad to the U.S. was rather cheap for us because we could buy these standby tickets. So we got the last seats on the plane. That's another story to tell, but. So I think that's like how it all started. Like I was exposed to it without really knowing, and then it was just somewhere in the back of my head, and it kind of popped up as an idea. And my dad, who is a big hockey guy, and golf also, but hockey especially, he was just happy that I found a team sport. So, and this was probably in like March or something. So my mom started Googling like American football, Stockholm. And what pops up? Top of the list, Google, Stockholm Mean Machines. So we actually were about to go to one of their practices. But it turned out that they were practicing like Fridays between, 6 and 8 or whatever. Like on the other side of town, because I'm raised just north of Stockholm. And so my parents weren't really happy about, spending their Friday nights in a strange gymnasium. So they kind of said, "Oh, we'll find somewhere else." And then they found Täby with the Täby Flyers, and so that's where it all started. 2004. I went to my first practice in Skarpängshallen, which is like a big gymnasium, just and at that time, point in time for the Flyers organization. There was a seniors team as well. All of the teams were practicing together. So from like you were 11 up until you were with the seniors, you were like in the same hall. Although we weren't really practicing together, we were just doing the warm ups and stuff. And I remember like my second time, I got this clunky looking helmet, which wouldn't be safe for football. and I got these huge pads that smell funny. And I was like, hey, I'm a part of the team, and I just love this. So that's how it all started, and how I kind of got about it.
What position did you start as?
I started playing on the O-line because I was a husky dude. So you know, I was too big and too unathletic to play anything else, and so I played on the O-line and on the D-line for my entire life. I played center a bunch of years, and it kind of fit well with like me as a person, because I like to be in charge of things, and I like to you know, strategize and kind of find the best angle of attack. And that was a great position to play as a center. And yeah, when you know, if you've ever played on the O-line, you know, you make a bunch of friends. And I used to like the brotherhood.
And for how long did you play the game before you got into coaching?
So I was pretty young into coaching, and to tell that story, I started off actually helping out on the golf club as a golf coach when I was like 13. So, you know, handling younger kids, sort of making sure that they didn't kill each other. And
didn't whack a golf club at each other.
Yes, exactly. And to make things worse for us on the golf club, the parents used to like bring their kids home from school. They'd just, you know, put them full with sugar and then bring them down to golf practice. So they were just running around wild. It was crazy. So that's where I started like my coaching career. And then in 2007, we were playing. This was my last year in 2007. It was my last year in U16, which was the age group back then, with the Tabby, and we were down in Dukes 20, and my first time in Dukes. And I was sitting around talking with a parent for one of the kids in one of the younger teams, and he was like, "You should start coaching." And I had never thought about it before. So that kind of set the idea in motion. I came down on like a U13 practice and just fell in love with it in 2007. And then I played up until 2010, which was my last U19 year. And I kind of felt during 2009 and into 2010 that coaching was really what I liked and what I wanted to do. So it was like a transition, but yeah, so that's how I got into coaching.
Isn't it weird, like being a player then start coaching? Did you coach the same age group you were playing in, or did it take?
No, I started coaching U13, and I was an assistant coach for 3 years or 2.5 years before I became a head coach. But I stayed in U13 up until 2011, or during the 2011 season. So I wasn't really that close to the players of the age group that I was playing myself in.
Wait, 2000? You guys won Dukes 2011.
The U15, yeah. No, sorry, they finished second, I think.
U13, you guys killed us.
I think U15 played the finals. I know U13 played also in the finals in Dukes, and we lost against. I think it was Ystad, who were really good that year.
In 2011.
Yeah.
Wait, who are we on now? U15. So
I think U15 finished second as well.
Oh yeah. I was actually playing U15 that year.
Okay.
That's why I find this so interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah, if I remember correctly, our team we lost to Tabby, and Tabby won that group. So you guys must have been in the final.
Yeah, and I think they lost. I don't know who they lost to, the U15 team, but I know that the U13 guys played in the finals, and I think we lost against Ystad.
Oh no! I think it was Karlshamn. I think
it could have been Karlshamn because that was
yeah. I
so
think
side one.
No, not me. I wasn't there actually.
Okay.
No, I remember this because Karlshamn had the team, but then a bunch of my old teammates from Kristianstad were playing with Karlshamn.
You're right. You're right.
They provided a lot of support for that team.
That
if I
team
remember
didn't need
correctly.
them, actually. We were good enough ourselves. I actually, the only reason I didn't play, because I didn't know enough Swedish to understand they were going to attorney, so I didn't understand what's happening. So I said, no. Then I went home. So I missed out on goal, unfortunately.
You must have been like 9 back then.
I was pretty young. Alton was there.
Yeah, he might
He
have
was
been.
like,
Yeah, I think that that Karlshamn team was really good. So it was a great final. They just beat us. Yeah, we had 2 runner-ups that year from the Tabby.
That's always a bummer. You have this successful organization. You have good teams who are going up there. They're both playing for a title, and then
against the village.
Neither one makes makes it through.
I think because these were probably the players born in '98. They were playing the last year, and I had a bunch of great guys in that year group, and a bunch of them actually have come back to Tabby and are coaching now or have coached, and so that was just a great group of guys. But we didn't really know that we were going to be any good going into that tournament. We were like, when you're coaching U13, you're like, yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see if the kids even know where they're going.
That's the age group with Hugo Dörendal, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he was one of them, and a bunch of other guys, which were great guys, and also that's where I think this was the first year, probably first year that Alexander Sjö, who is right now the defensive coordinator in the Junior National Team, that he coached. And I had Daniel Weisberg, who is the offensive line coach. He coached the year before. So there was a bunch of guys that kind of started their coaching careers with me during that time, which was fun.
The funny thing about Tab is you always have good teams, but always like 15 players, 13 players.
Yeah.
Like, goddamn, can you pull 25 players so you can play? Actually, like, so the guys can rest?
But that hasn't always been the case. I remember
I've never played a
against some
Tabby team that had a lot of dudes.
I remember playing against some well stacked Tabby teams when I was young.
Yeah, I think probably did you play U15 in 2012?
Yeah, that was my last year in U15.
Yeah, and that year I think we had like 45 kids in U15.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Damn.
Yeah. So I it's a great question because we've been kind of struggling a lot with that in the Tabby organization and trying to figure out why can't we get more players. Like one of the larger clubs in Tabby in regular soccer, they have 4,000 players. So there are players, and there are like 4 soccer clubs in Tabby. So there are a lot of kids, and we're covering a fairly large area north of Stockholm. But it does become like a snowball effect in reverse, that if you're not large enough, like it's an economies of scale. If you're large enough, you can actually, it's kind of self-recruiting, but it's self-perpetuating, but you have to get to that volume and size. And we haven't been able to do that. And also, I think it should be mentioned that we've always been very strict on the age groups. We want to keep players in their where they are in their age, and so we're not really combining teams, which makes it look like we're fewer players, or we are fewer players in each team.
Kristianstad might pull up with a 35-man roster on U19, but have like 25% is U17. 30 of them are like barely 18. So it's.
Well, I mean, I think Kristianstad has done a fantastic job throughout the years, and truly one of the a few of the best games that I've coached have always been against Kristianstad teams because they're well coached and they're stacked with talent. So huge respect to the organization.
It's kind of fun because I remember you coaching the Tabby teams when I was playing in the youth groups, and then now lately I've been coaching against you on the field with the U19. So it's kind of fun how these things come full circle like that.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I have the same experience. I've coached a number of kids that I either coach against or coach with, and it kind of when you start coaching when you're young. I was just turning 16 that year, and I'm 31, turning 32 this year. So I've basically done it for more than half my life, and yeah, it's just you make a lot of friends, and you make you meet a lot of people, and over the years, you kind of accumulate a lot of contacts.
What moment did make you feel like, oh shit, I've been doing this for a long time? I think everybody had a moment like this.
Yeah, it probably depends on like which level you're talking about. Like if we're going to the national team, that would probably be in 2021. We were playing in the Nordics, and we were we had a game against Denmark, the first game, and we were the kids were doing great, but we as a coaching staff weren't, and I kind of felt like we have to change certain things now. So, and just that that awareness that we're not really doing our job, even though we might be performing on the field. I think that made me feel like, okay, I can probably I have a place here, I can coach here because I know what needs to be done. But if you go into more of a local club setting, there hasn't really been a revelation. I've always enjoyed coaching. I've always enjoyed the kind of the mental aspect of the game, and even though people might not believe it, I've always had huge respect for the opponents and for the game planning process and everything. So yeah, I can't really say there's like one moment that's like an epiphany going, I can coach here.
Because you coach probably every 25 and under dude in Sweden.
Yeah, I've probably been exposed to a lot of those, and even either through like a national team combine or seeing them in Dukes or playing in the series or yeah. So yeah, you're probably right. So it's
yeah. I think you were the ULU receivers coach when I was at one of their camps.
Yeah, that's probably right, because I started my first, or actually it's the second stint with the national team, because my first one was when I was with the student national team in Uppsala in the spring of 2014. So I was the assistant head coach with Leo Billgren, who took me on, and that was a great experience. And then in the fall, Björn Markusson, who was the previous head coach for the youth national team, he said he contacted me and said like, "Hey, I'm thinking about stepping down. I would like to recommend you as the new head coach. What do you think about that?" And I was like, "Well, that's awesome." And I was 22 at that time, so it wasn't really 23 at that time. So I felt like, oh wow, I'm quite young to be in that position. But then in the fall, I was on the youth national team as the receivers coach. I'd never coached receivers before. I had no idea what I was doing. So that was fun, speaking with confidence and everything, getting kids to think that you actually know something that you don't know.
I wonder if any of the receivers at that camp could see through that.
They might. We did a lot of blocking.
Actually, they were good at blocking. Those were... God, is that a slot pulling? Oh shit!
Yeah, no, that was. It's actually not my worst experience as a coach, because I'm an offensive guy. So you kind of you know how it all fits together. But I was with the Team Nordic, and this was probably in 2018 maybe. Trying to figure out, or 2019, no, 2018 it must have been. So I was coaching the linebackers. I was like, I have no freaking idea what I'm doing. But I was fortunate because I had Hugo Durandal with me, who was my linebackers coach back in Tabby. So I was like, Hugo, what are we doing? What should I be doing?
Simple enough. You teach them all of the thing you hated when linebackers did as a center. It's like you couldn't find a way. Yeah, I hate it when a linebacker blitz. Yeah, guys blitz. Come here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably right. Because I've, even from when I started my coaching career, I've most of the time been a head coach, and really not had that many position responsibilities or coordinator responsibilities. So I've just been coordinating the entire team. So even though you're like exposed to football, you're not really exposed to the details of football. But it's good for you, and it helps your understanding when you get to go and actually coach a position or coordinate the offense or the defense, because you might actually, as a head coach, kind of simplify the role for the coordinator or the position coach otherwise. So you have to kind of have some sort of respect for the complexity of the role.
I asked the same question to Beatty, but I think it's a big difference because of the ages. What is the biggest difference coaching the national team compared to a local team, where like you literally pick every position? In your local team, you just you work what you got.
Yeah. Well, there are a few differences, of course. I think the main one is time, like exposure to the kids, because you have to really quickly get a bunch of players that don't really know each other, that don't really they don't fit together culturally. So you have to get them to actually fit together to perform. So that's probably one of the biggest difference, that you have to be very clear on expectations going into it. Like, first, second, this is what we're expecting of everybody. This is how we want to, behave together, and all those things. The other part is that in the, I would say that the leadership aspect in the club team is actually harder, because you're working with players who are somewhat reluctant to play, or like they don't all want to be there every time. So you have to be more on a one-on-one basis with the players, with the kids, and you have to understand, their environment to some extent. If you're coaching 18, 19-year-olds, they school is a big part of their life and what's going on there, and they might have a partner, or it might be stuff that's happening in their life that will affect them on the field. While in the national team, you get guys together, you're together for maybe 2 or 3 days or a week, and you do your thing, and then you're out. Like you can almost create like a bubble that makes the entire world is just the team and where you're at. So I think those are a few of the differences that are between coaching a national team or a club team.
Because I could imagine it's the national team, like you don't have to teach them. Like, okay, younger kids, you probably have to teach them sometimes. I think the men's team, like, do this. You low-key have to, like, do you know how to do this?
Yeah. I think it's really like a flipped perspective of it. And that's a good follow-up question, because if you're coaching in the club team, you can go, this is how we're doing it. You're more clear on how you want things done. We don't have the time in the national team to do that. We can't really teach players. So we have to go the other way around and kind of think, okay, are the players able to solve the problem that they are presented with? And if it's a yes, we go, right, perfect. If it's a no, then we'll correct it. But so there's more variance to the technique used, to the stance, to where they're positioned. Like there's a larger freedom for the players in the system. And that's really something that especially the coordinators have to adapt to and be mindful of. And we talk a lot about it, and they in their turn have to talk with their position coaches about that. So yeah, that's a big difference when you're talking about the national teams.
Well, speaking of the national teams, we've kind of failed to mention that we have a big event with the junior national team coming up very soon here, 1 week from the date of this recording. You guys have your semi-final, European Championship semi-final against Denmark. Yeah. And how are you feeling going into this game?
I'm feeling excited, and it's going to be interesting to see what we can do. When you're coaching either the youth or the junior national team, every year is a different year because you're not keeping all the players on the team, since a few they get too old and they move on. So it's going to be really interesting to see what we can do this year. I think that I'm excited about just starting the season, starting our season, although it's not a season, but starting playing the national team games now, and facing off with Denmark, which is always a really good opponent, and seeing how a few of the kids that might have been a backup last year, how they've developed, and I think a few of the guys are really gonna pop out on film.
Is there a special player?
And
give us some key here.
Well, I think if you're looking at, I would probably talk about position groups more. I think the offensive line, they were really good last year. I think they look at least equally good or even better this year. I think the quarterbacks look really good, and I'm hopeful about the defensive backs. So yeah, there are a bunch of really good position groups that we're going to see, and none of the kids have really played a game since October, so this is their first game as well.
And it's really fun for national team events like this when they start playing, because you never really know who's going to stand out, because you see at the club level it's very well ingrained who the stars are for each teams and all that stuff. But when you get to the national team level, it can really depend on the day, the game, the shape of the game, the form of the player. Yeah, who will stand out on any given day.
Yeah, no, fully agree. And I think one thing that a lot of people might miss is that on the club level, there might be a player that's really good, and they're good because they're just more athletic or faster or stronger than all the other kids. But yeah, exactly. But then they get to the national team, and all of a sudden, everybody's pretty good. And a few of the kids that get to that position, they feel like, oh, what's going on? Well, I can't do what I used to do, and now I'm no good. And other kids go, all right, this is a cool challenge. I'm gonna elevate my game even further. So I think it's I really agree with you what you're saying, right? That there's that mix. And that kind of environment is a little different, and it's cool to see how the guys kind of adapt to that.
Okay, we need to go into how do you guys pick players? How is that process?
Well, I have a huge board, and I throw a dart.
Who's going to the national team camp this year?
Okay, I need to do a public apology here. Before I understood how the system works, I used to get pretty mad, like, oh, the national team sucks, they only pick their own players. Then we did our own drafts. Then I realized, like, oh shit, you have to pick your dudes, because you never know how actually other people are, how good they are. They might have a too good game against your team, but the rest of the season they suck. So that's why I realized why usually coaches pick their own players mostly.
Yeah, we can get back to that question, because I think I think that's a valid question, and a lot of people have had that question throughout the years, and I can give you kind of my view on it. But going back to the first question in terms of selection, it's a really it's a tough process. So this year, we did it like this. So we had 3 combines throughout Sweden, which were open to everybody who wanted to come, and we do some really simple tests that don't take too much training or practice to get done, but it gives us a sense of kind of the athletic ability of the player. So we have them do a broad jump, an L drill, and they run a 40-yard dash basically, and that combined with all the players that were eligible for 2023 from last year's European Championship team, that was combined into one of the lists, so to say. And then we selected from the combines the players that we felt had the necessary athletic ability to perform on the national level or national team level. So the selected players from the combine with the players from last year's team were combined, and we had a tryout here in Stockholm in mid-February during 2 days, and we did the usual tests for physical ability, and we had 3 practices and a lot of coaching, a lot of film study, and based on that, we did our selection for the players that we feel can contribute to the national team.
So essentially, you make sure that everyone who shows up for a tryout fits the right athletic profile, and then once you get them on the field, you select off of
exactly
how well they perform at the tryout.
And I think that goes back to kind of the premise of that. A good player always has an athletic ability, although an athletic player might not always have a good football ability. So it's like one does exclude the other. So when we start with the athletic ability, like that doesn't really give us the team, but it gives us a core that we know we can select from. It's like if you test a player running a 40-yard dash and you get the time, that player is never going to be faster than that time on the field. That's the limiter. Like that's the limit. So he might be a great receiver, but he's not going to run a post route faster than he can run straight ahead. Like it's impossible. So we start with that, and then we kind of go backwards from it. And I think from my part, it's been important that we really lower the threshold for being a part of the national team, in a sense that you can actually come out and show yourself. I don't want to, I never want to hear about someone going, oh, I didn't get a chance to show myself, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're doing three tryouts throughout Sweden. I don't think any player had a further than like 2-hour car drive to a tryout. Like if you're mapping it out. So that's been a huge part for me, and then we kind of go from there.
Because I gotta be honest, before I used to be salty about that.
Yep, I remember your tryout for you.
Talent-wise, I was definitely one of the best linemen there. I would admit it, but 40-yard dash time. I think Walker that year ran faster than me. If you guys seen Walker, it's a really funny joke.
If I remember correctly, the thing that really you didn't really score that high on was the broad jump. I don't think you actually made it very far.
No, I think the 40 was my worst. My vertical is pretty good.
No, just the broad jump. You're kind of forward, just jumping.
I can't remember if I was that terrible, but the 40 was bad.
Yeah, I probably have the test results, so I could probably go back and just check if you want to. If you want to check.
No. But I thought now, and as an older, wiser person, not that wise, I totally understand your decision, because I wasn't in the business of playing for a national team. Like, mindset wise.
Yeah. And that's a good perspective as well, because you have to it has to feel important to you, and I fully respect that not all people feel that playing for a national team is important. Like I have full respect for that, but we want to go with the guys that feel that it's important to them. And kind of going back to your second question before, in terms of why is there a higher ratio of players from clubs that have national team coaches. And this is my really simple explanation, because I've been kind of looking into this for a few years. And what happens when you have coaches in the national team? It tends to make the club closer to the national team. So all of these, like, you know, the minimal requirements in terms of athletic ability, in terms of flexibility, in terms of power, speed, everything, that kind of translates into how those coaches run the practices on a club level. So all of a sudden, there's more exposure to the national team, and it's more of a natural step to take, because, you know, our coach is in the national team, so of course I should try out for the national team. So that's really what I think is happening, and why we see a lot of coaches that have a lot of players in the national team. Even though, you know, I'm really strict on this. I want all our players to, like, we basically take away their club team when they get to us, because we wanna assess everybody on the same level, because my job is to win the game for the national team, not to win with players from, you know, Täby or Stockholm or Limhamn or whatever. My job is to win, and I need the best team possible to win, basically.
One of our former players showed, like, we talked about this in practice. He told me, like, look at this picture. Like, this is the time where Tyson and Walker was the national team coaches. He said, look, this is the Kristianstad starting 11 over here, and all of them are on the team.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like this. Every coach, like, it's easier to give him, because you bring your own system with you, I guess. So, like, easier to teach those guys. They know what a run and shoot is. Some random guy all-star that runs I formation might not know it. So
yeah. And also, I think there's it's closer. The players that have national team coaches in their club teams, they have a closer cultural step. Like, it feels more like home with the coaches, so they're more kind of used to it. And I think that's a part of it as well.
Unfortunately, I might join the seniors national team someday. I forgot to apply this year, so.
Hey, I actually did apply. I got a message from the defensive line coach asking if I had any highlight film, and then he said, never mind, I saw you link the highlights. Then I never heard from them again.
I don't know if that's true or not. I made it to some national team group, but I missed out on the email because it went to my spam mail. So, like, a couple of months ago, I went through my spam. I saw, like, 2017 or something random. I got a mail. So I might have missed out on it. Who knows?
Your life could have been different.
Could have been athletic now, being on the national team.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm athletic and saying random shit on a podcast.
But so the process to select the team here in 2023, has that been any different from how you've selected teams in the past, and how does this team stack up compared to other teams that you've coached in the national team?
Well, the first question is that I think we're always trying to, you know, improve our selection process, and we're always doing a review of last year and the years before, and going, okay, what did we learn from last year going into this year? We've been more inclusive on the special team players, kind of figuring out who have the special team abilities. That's been a bit of a change this year. But all in all, I feel that the process, because we had two new coaches joining national team coaching staff as well. So, like, selection camp was like an onboarding for them as well.
Want to give those new coaches a shout out?
Yeah, sure. August Breen, who's the receivers coach, and Elliot Krugius, who was with us last year but has moved from coaching running backs to coaching the safeties. So, two younger guys, great guys. But there's always a change in coaching style, and there's always an onboarding process in terms of how we work as a coaching staff, how I work as a head coach, and that's a part of. I think you sometimes forget the importance of a well-functioning coaching staff when you're in with the national team. Like, you only see the selection camp and the players, but you forget that when it comes to the game, the coaching staff has to work as well. Otherwise, it's not gonna you're not going to win the game. Or you might win the game if you have really good players.
Was it that last year you guys had all those D1 guys, Theo and Oliver?
No, that was 2021, which is a great example of when the players were great and the coaches were horrible because we were just standing in the way of the players were good enough to overcome the coaches, which is not how it's supposed to be.
That team, I don't think needed a lot of coaching. Like, just do something with the ball, guys.
No. Like I'm being honest now. In the game against Denmark in 2021, the kids would have been better without us because we were just standing in the way.
That was in Helsingør, right? The Nordics. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Fun game to watch. I felt Denmark.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So that's a great example of having great players that can really, even though the coaches might not help you, they actually overcome that and they just they figure it out and that's how all football is played. The players play it and the coaches can't.
Yeah, but I mean, if the talent gap is huge, then of course coaching is never going to be enough to either sink one team or raise the other. Yeah. To compete with that. I mean, they can close the gap can close a bit, but if the talent gap is wide enough, the more talented team is going to win. But in any other scenario, in-game coaching is crucial. I mean, of course, the coordinators calling the plays, but also the position coaches going in and giving the small details that will help their guys win. I mean, these things are vital in in-game situations.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and getting back coaching correct and efficient is really so important to us and something that we're constantly working with, and that goes back to the selection camp. That kind of starting that process with our new guys, with our new coaches, how they should be coaching in that situation because it is an onboarding process. But yeah, so the selection camp, I think it was similar. The process was similar. We did one fever practice this time instead of 4. We did 3. So that we're constantly kind of working with small details, just trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to do it. And comparing this team to last year or the previous years. I'm really excited to see the quarterback this year, which is Max Lambert, because I think he has taken steps in an interesting and important direction, getting better and better. And it's his second year in the junior national team. He played last year, and when you're doing it the first time, everything is like overwhelming. But this year he's 1 year older and. He's been playing with Stockholm during the spring here, so that's exciting. But then again, going back to the position groups, I think you're going to see a pretty similar Swedish team in terms of our identity.
We wish you guys the best. I unfortunately not in Sweden. I'm on vacation, so I will miss the game. Could have been a ball boy.
I'll be standing right there on I think the Danish sideline with the chain. I'm going to be in the chain gang, so I'll be getting a first-hand view.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think you guys haven't mentioned it, but playing in Sweden, it was a few years ago that we had that possibility to do that, and especially playing in front of a home crowd, which is probably going to be roaring for us. It's going to be great fun, and myself and the team is really excited about it. So yeah, it's going to be good fun.
The good part is
forward to it, and we hope that the entire South comes out April 9th. And
it's not that far from Denmark. My Danish fans come
Limham, Ystad, Helsingborg. You guys, you gotta show up for this event.
Everything south of Södertälje, you should come down.
Hey, hell, even if you're north of Södertälje,
do a fan bus.
True.
All of the fans get a bus and drive down together.
Exactly. Yeah, we probably should do that.
That would be awesome to have a fan bus coming down from Karlstad, Stockholm, Gothenburg. That would be pretty cool.
Denmark is too close, so a lot of people from Denmark will come too.
Yeah. I expect a pretty big, a pretty sizable Danish crowd as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the Danish national team and the Danish federation have really done a good job throughout the years to get their fans involved in it, and they're excited about playing as well. They love playing Sweden. It's like their favorite opponent, so we have to be ready for it. They feel that they have they're coming with momentum, and they finished winning against France. We finished losing against Austria. So they have a win in their last game, and we have a loss. And,
but it's Austria and France. Come on.
Well, I'm just saying, momentum-wise, they probably have a lot going for them. But it's those types of games that you love coaching in and you love playing.
So talking about momentum, last year's U19, you guys, I don't remember after what game you guys just lit on fire and just destroyed.
Yeah. With
when did that?
Yeah. It was after our Karlstad game, because we went to Karlstad. We felt that going down to Kristianstad the first game, kind of showed the potential, because I think that was, even though it was the first game of the year, it was a really good game in terms of play quality and in terms of what we could do. And then we kind of started sliding from there. So playing in Karlstad, we felt that we didn't really reach our potential, that we weren't playing as well as we could. And we had a few of our more senior players who weren't really happy with what we did there. So we had to kind of feel that, okay, this should be a turning point. So we worked really hard for the next game, which I think was Gothenburg Limham, who came to visit us, and then we managed to beat them. And then it was clear that, okay, we still have a chance to play the semifinal at home. We just gotta go through AIK, and we got to win with, if it was 50 points or whatever it was, 45 points.
Yeah, I remember that. We couldn't control anything in Kristianstad, and I was sitting there at a U13 tournament in Kristianstad. I was watching on my phone. I was like, can AIK actually play a decent game to keep them from scoring that amount? And then I started watching the game. Okay, this isn't looking very promising. This is looking less promising, and then shit.
I remember Tabby scored like 20 and like 20 points before AIK even touched the ball.
Yeah,
that's probably right.
You got the ball back twice, I remember. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the game plan was pretty clear from us. We were like, we're going to score. We're going to score a lot and often. So. The funny thing is that game, the defensive coordinator, Alexander, who is also the defensive coordinator in the junior national team, he was away for holiday. He was actually in London to watch the NFL game. So the defense was actually managed by Niels Berg, who is now playing in the junior national team. So he did a phenomenal job as a safety, being the on-field coach, coaching the defense. And they played lights out. No, that was kind of a strange game, because going into that game, AIK were really hoping for us to lose against Gothenburg, because if that would have happened, they still had a chance to secure a spot in the playoffs. But when we won, they couldn't, and so all of a sudden the game meant nothing to them and everything to us. And I think that's really what happened.
Yeah,
that's why you see the momentum.
Yeah, I mean the whole series coming down to these very small small differences. It just shows how close and exciting that U19 series was last year.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think one funny sequence was actually when we'd scored. And you start doing the numbers, and it's like, okay, if we add the extra point, the clock is going to run, and we don't want that. So, and we had it all mapped out, and we were like, okay, this is the point where we're not going to score an extra point, because we're going to go for two, we always kicked otherwise because we had a fantastic kicker in Hugo Backing, but now we're gonna go for 2, and we're not gonna score at all.
What was the play?
So,
what did he tell the quarterback?
yeah, it was like a rollout pass. It was a rollout pass, and the quarterback just threw it, at the feet of the receiver or wherever it was, or high probably. So, and there was like a referee there who was coaching the other referee. So he came by me during halftime. He was like, "The extra point that you guys didn't score, was that designed?" And I was like, "It depends on who's asking." And he's like, "Well, I'm just wondering." I go, "Yeah, because if we'd scored, the clock would have been running, and we didn't want that." He's like, "Okay, that's interesting. I don't think too many referees knows about that, but that's smart." So that was like a funny sequence.
Yeah, bummer of a situation for us in Kristianstad, because when we played AIK a few weeks earlier, we didn't know that the result might have implications. So in the second half, we were playing a bunch of backups and just having fun with the end of that game.
and I mean, to be honest, I don't like that type of situation. I don't like running up the score. I think it goes against the nature of me as a coach. But then again, I have to do what's best for the team and how the series was set up. So
I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and saving several thousand on travel cost is a very smart thing to do.
Well, I think that, really going back, we felt that we had a chance against Kristianstad, but we had great respect for the team, and we felt that if we're playing at home, we have a better chance than going down playing in Kristianstad. So it wasn't, of course, travel expenses is a part of it, but that wasn't the main reason. It was more like it's the best chance that we have to win the semifinal because we're going to play a really good team.
Because playing in Kristianstad is a headache. You got the fans, you got a bad referee on your sideline, coach. It was me, to people who didn't know. I missed out on a illegal formation call. Andre's best job was like,
we had like 3 Super Series referees. They were in the middle, and then we had 2 referees that weren't really used to how you're supposed to be a referee, but who tried their best. But
I missed out on some calls, but I never said I'm a good ref. Okay.
No, you were very honest about that, so that's why I didn't shoot you out, because I was like, he's actually saying he's a horrible ref. Like, what should I say? Like,
you actually said that to Sebastian before the game.
I don't have the balls to make some calls. Like, I don't know. Like, he told me, like, throw the flag. I'm like, oh, no way. But then, like,
in the end, I felt bad for his side. I was like, yeah, I should probably, like, you're not that bad. Like, you're trying your best. It's okay. We all make mistakes.
One of their coaches went up to me and told me, like, don't be so stressed out. Try to have fun. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was probably Alexander. He was like, yeah, chill out, man.
I was for me, it was a terrible day. Because if you have, like, high-level refs, then somebody sucks, you stand out too much.
Yeah. No, I've been reffing just a few games, and I have such a huge respect for all the refs, and that's why I'm big on not standing there screaming at the refs, because it's such a complex role to have during a game, and there's so much things going on. So I think we should do a better job as coaches to really talk with the refs, and especially and more importantly to actually know the rules, because a lot of coaches don't know the rules, and that's just then we can't really. How can you be running around screaming at a ref if you don't know the rules?
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. If you can't keep track of the rules yourself, then you shouldn't get mad at anyone else for how they interpret the rules.
It's like saying to a coach, like, tell me everything that happened in this play. Like, what every player did. I mean, you can't do that. And the ref can't look at everything. Yeah. So it's terrible sometimes. Like, hey, he held me. I'm like, yeah, but your guy held him the other side, so I saw him instead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, holdings. It's like that's one of the things that people misunderstand. It's like you are allowed to hold
in a certain way.
Like, in a certain way. Like it's not the actual holding that's the penalty, but yeah, there are a bunch of those. And so like going back to when I'm working with my coaches, I'm super clear on that. My coaching staff, I'm the one talking with the refs and no one else, because it makes the sideline better and it helps us as coaches, and we can kind of focus on the
you
right
guys
things.
have very professional sideline. You all match. How many khakis do you buy a year? How fast do you go through your? Because you probably own a bunch of them.
So when I was like, this is crazy probably, but for some reason, superstition probably, I started doing this. So every year I would buy a new pair of khakis, and a new pair of shoes, and a new white Under Armour cap. And that's been going on like during the past probably 12 or 13 years. So I've been going through a bunch of pants during these years and a bunch of shoes.
Is that the golfer in you that you have to look professional when you do everything?
It's a good question, because I think that especially in the beginning when I started coaching, that was kind of a part for me to look the part as a coach, and then I felt that it actually gives an advantage in games, because the players on the other sideline looked at our sideline and were like, "Ooh, those guys look pretty darn good. Like they look like they know what they're doing," even though we had no freaking idea what we were doing, but it looked like that. And you shouldn't like, perception is important in that sense. So that's how it all started, and then it kind of went on from there. So I think we probably started. I started with wearing khakis and having all my coaches wearing khakis in when we were in U13. So
you should make a deal with that company so much you buy.
Yeah, I've tried reaching out to Ralph Lauren and they haven't responded. So I'll try again. I could probably save a lot of money on Ralph Lauren and Under Armour, but they haven't really been.
I think there's customer support is not that good with the sponsorships. I've heard.
Maybe you guys can help out. Now when I'm on the podcast, I have a medium now.
You know how many emails I've sent to Red Bull?
I'll just link to this.
They told me like, buddy, you barely have a podcast. Go sleep. Go do something else. You guys look professional. Yeah. Even if you played in U17. When you guys, like, it's the first game of the cup. You guys beat us. I'm like, damn, they look professional. What is that team? Tabby? What is Tabby? I'm from the south, so we don't know what Tabby is. But yeah.
Yeah, no.
So I'll give it to you guys. You look like pros out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think it's really it's a true part to it. It's partly how you look and partly how you behave, and I think you have to do both to kind of pull it off. And I'm really hard on my coaches during game day in terms of how we communicate and how we work, and no shouting on the sideline, and talk with the players and all those things. And because as Andre said before, which I think it's one of the key things, us as coaches, we can provide something, an extra edge, but we can only do it if we're efficient in terms of how we work and how we communicate.
Yeah, I haven't coached that much, so I will try to be a professional coach. I will find an outfit that makes me look professional.
Yeah, you have to start with the outfit, and then you'll go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I agree. I think for me, putting on the coaching uniform is a part of the pregame process, kind of stepping into coaching.
In Kristianstad, we're a bit more like organized chaos.
Coach, the question is, do you have an extra pair of khakis with you?
Sure, when I travel,
See you,
absolutely. Right? Yeah. But that would then kind of destroy the process of having this year's khakis, because I only buy one pair per year, so then that would make me superstitious about something else happening. So yeah, I should probably go away from it somehow, but we'll see what happens.
Superstitions are very hard to break.
Oh yeah, definitely so. It's yeah, and it kind of gets into your head for some reason.
Talk about it. The 2020 season, you guys manhandled Karlstad. Semifinals.
2020 season. Yeah. Okay.
How was that
I'm good.
game?
Yeah. No.
As a player, I was pretty confident. We haven't played you guys that year yet, so we didn't know what you guys had.
Yep. You're talking about the finals now, right?
We went up to
Semifinal,
Kristianstad
okay, yeah.
to look at the game. Me on Josh.
Yeah,
That's a nice car ride of
yeah.
15 hours or
actually
whatever.
the most fun road trip ever.
Yeah, I mean, we had fun. We rotated
The amount of
drivers.
energy
And,
that was consumed in the
It
car
works.
and the amount of pit stops was like 0 pit stops, and I think around 20 bottles. No, I didn't drink.
But yeah, we had head coach, offensive coordinator,
D-line.
and whoever this guy over here is.
That game, when I saw
With
it, I
us
was like,
up.
shit, what is this game plan? You guys had flips, turns, with one clap, your receiving crew switched. I'm like, shit. So I texted the group chat. I'm like, guys, we're in trouble. Tabby looks good.
And we had split with Karlstad, so like we knew that the Crusaders had a good team.
But they didn't know what to do with your passing game.
No, I think that's that 2020 team was really. We had a bunch of very good seniors in that team that were very football smart, and we tried to. We had like an offense that we tried to, because I was the offensive coordinator, so we tried to evolve it throughout the season, adding layers upon layers of deception, if you would use that term. So kind of calling one formation, switching to another formation, doing a motion of that formation. So there's a bunch of moving parts at the same time. We felt that Karlstad was a really good opponent. I think especially our defense played really good during that game, and we managed to hold on to the ball and drive it fairly well. So no, that was and that's also a game, because we were talking about momentum before. That was a game that was probably won through momentum, because Karlstad were so confident that they were going to win against us, because they were like, if you saw their sideline, it was like 35 people, and we were 16, and we came out in like the all white uniforms on a grass field, and they weren't all white for that long. But as we started kind of moving the ball and scoring, and we were ahead, and if they almost started to feel like it was slipping away from them, and that became a snowball effect, I think, on their sideline, because there was like players get worried, coaches get worried. You're not finding the tools that are needed to stop the offense or score on the defense. So all of a sudden you're there and you're down with a few scores, and yeah, it's just tough to get back.
That Karlstad team was funny because they had run game and a fade to Oscar, number 5.
Yeah,
If that didn't work,
Yep.
probably the other worked. But if both didn't work, then they're shit.
What we were really struggling with offensively against them was their D-line stunts. We had a really tough time handling that up front.
Yeah, no, it's I think the Karlstad defense that year, and actually last year as well, they've been playing the similar defense for a few years, and they do a lot of stunting, and they drop out of one of the rushers drop out and play the flat, and they do a bunch of that stuff, and you have to really, like, I spend a lot of time in the scouting process to figure that one out, to understand, where's the safety, how's the safety gonna tell us what's going on, if they're in this coverage. Like, there was a bunch of stuff going into it, and once again, we had a great quarterback in Johan Hallgren, who was super smart and could kind of handle all that information. So he put us in a good position to play. But once again, I think a lot of credit goes to Alexander on the defense. He did a fantastic job with the defensive game plan, and because they were pretty good in the run game, but they
also had a big physical team, which you guys didn't really have. So to find the ways to stop that ground game is, I mean, it's difficult.
Thing they cannot stop if you run the ball a lot, they will kill you because they're like built like brick houses, all of their team.
Yeah.
But you guys run like wide passes and everything. They were so confused. Poor people. Poor Costa. Some of those guys were really nice people, but unfortunately.
Well, I think that's probably you have to have an offense that can really expose the defense weaknesses, and you have to, and has always been part of this philosophy that you should always look at what you're doing well, but I think it's really important to also look at how does your system fit towards your opponent, and how can you kind of use it to expose the weaknesses that you have discovered. So sometimes you might run a lot, sometimes you might be in empty passing a lot. Who knows? So that's the fun of
your
game
plan in the finals. What was Kristianstad's weak points? Because none of those players is probably starting now. So the game plan has shifted a lot, I guess. So you can expose it, I think, if you want to.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a 3-year-old team at this point.
What was the things like you guys?
You can say anything.
Use that thing because my idea was, if you ran, we had nobody that could catch him. Your quarterback, if he ran, I told him like we have zero speed on the sides, and I was on the side. I'm like, we cannot catch him.
Yeah.
That was a really fun game to coach, that final, because
it depends on which sideline you were on, but
I mean, of course we won, so it was more fun. But like the whole chess match of it was something that I didn't really do against any other team. Almost like I was switching up plays right before the start of it based on different alignments I saw from your defense, and the chess match of that game was really interesting as a coordinator.
I agree, and I think that's one thing that you can get when you're facing really good coaches is the chess match in the game within the game, and you're trying to expose an adjustment that the defense made, but then the defensive coordinator notices that, and he has an adjustment to the adjustment, and you're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Going back to the size question. And I agree, Andre. It was a really fun game to coach, and I think our game plan was to run with Johan a lot because he is a great athlete, but he got hurt early in the second quarter, so all of a sudden he couldn't actually put that much weight on his foot. So, kind of, the front page of the game plan was like, okay, let's throw this out and go to what we can do. So we had to do a lot of drop back passes. We had to run with our running backs, screen games, stuff like that. And we probably felt that we had to stop Kristianstad's run game because they were strong in that, and especially Anton, who was a fantastic running back.
Yeah, he was awesome that year.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that you just love to have on a team. I think he's phenomenal. I've had him a few times on the national team. He's a great guy. He's hardworking. He has everything that you want in a player, and I think it was so fun. Like I had mixed feelings because I liked the guy, so I was just happy for him having a good game. But then he was having a good game against my team, which was bad. So, you always have these mixed emotions. No, I think. We got exposed in terms of that we couldn't figure out the veer efficiently. So you were either running, dead ahead on us, or you were running outside, and our linebackers and D-line couldn't figure it out. And we were trying different things, and I know Alexander was pulling his hair, and he was like,
big factor of that game was it's a big game. Like it's a big game. Like it's a lot of nerves. And the fans. I think we were ready because we played in the finals last year, and Karlstad's freaking drum. I still hear.
Yeah.
But once we were used to that sound level, but I think Ted was shocked. You guys had a lot of false starts.
Yeah. I agree. We weren't ready for that, and remember, this was the second year that the U19 program was actually in action in Tabby. So we hadn't been a U19 program for that long, and we especially hadn't been to a national championship for a few years. So I think that's you summarize it well. We weren't ready for it, and then again, you have to just. I can't go oh, the fans were horrible. Like the fans were fantastic for Kristianstad, and you just play the game. Like those are the circumstances that you play in. And I'll tell you this, we got smarter about it going there the second time. We had it figured out because and that's also like, and as you get better as a team, because you figure out, okay, this and this and this didn't work in this environment last time. So how do we figure it out? Do we go on silent? How do we communicate on the, on the sideline?
It showed the next finals where Tyresö was the newbies, and it showed like they were not ready for finals, but your team guys were too much to handle otherwise.
Yeah, the 2021 team was we're quite determined, and once again, the guys that there were a bunch of guys that lost the year before in Kristianstad, and they were like, okay, this is the year, this is our final year. Now we're gonna win. We're gonna will the team into winning, and
it sure as hell was not our year.
No. Well, I felt bad for you guys because we were coming down with vengeance the first game, and then I think it was like during pregame, and someone was like, "Yeah, Jacob's not playing quarterback."
Yeah,
he's playing quarterback. We don't know.
I think he broke a bone in a senior game. A week or two earlier.
Exactly.
The big question was asked by the coaches. So, like, "Yeah, guys, who's playing quarterback?" They found a guy at least.
No. That was when we went to up to Örebro to play the Tyresö game.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we counted like, okay, if we had everyone available, which string would this quarterback be? And we came up with he would probably be our 6th string quarterback. That was how bad it was.
Yeah, that's not great. But going down in 2021, we were like, they beat us last time in this arena. We're not gonna let them do it again. So
what was the score of that game? I don't think it was that like.
It was a total blowout.
I can't remember. I think we felt early on that there were, because you always get a sense that, okay, this team is probably pretty young, because you see how the players react on the opposing team, and then you go, okay, we're not gonna do something crazy here. Let's play everybody. Let's make sure we're actually getting reps, and we kind of felt that we could see it as a learning opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we lost like a dozen guys from that 2020 team who were seniors there.
Yeah,
but we thought preseason that we were gonna be able to put a decent team together still, but what happened was that certain players we expected to play didn't play, and then other guys got hurt, and it was just a disaster, because in reality we should have just played a U17 series and not participated with U19s with the team we had, but that was like too late of a revelation.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, because you did the opposite, right? You pulled the U17 team to play the Now it's the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, we had the situation where we were playing every series at the same time. So if we played a U17 season, then we would have issues playing a U19 season, and vice versa. So like we could only really pick one, and trying to participate to try to defend the gold medal from the year before is kind of something we pride ourselves on. So it was something we wanted to do. But
I saw the clip. I'm like, goodbye, buddy. We're gonna not have you this year. Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you think I could have gotten the MVP?
Yeah, no, it's
if I picked the ball. Yeah.
Are you asking me if you could have gotten an MVP?
Decent game on the night.
Are you talking about the 2020 game?
Yeah. I still think.
Yeah, that series that brings nightmares to me. That was a horrible series. I think we had like 45 yards of penalties in that series, and we were like, okay, we're just like third and 600 yards, whatever it was, and let's pull out the old trick play, and then of course one of the defensive line guys who's not fast enough to run with a quarterback stands there and almost looks like a hero. Yeah, You probably should have gotten the MVP if you managed to pick the ball and run it in, like, because that would go
too close.
Yeah, probably. Looking back, since we lost, it'd be a fun memory for you, and it wouldn't probably make any difference for me. So, yeah, we probably could have.
Because I had another turnover later on in the game.
Yeah. It was just. I think that was a strange game. There were a lot of penalties, a lot of things going on.
We ran such a weird system on defense. We're like,
yeah, no, that's like, to be honest, I hated that system. I personally absolutely hated that system because I could never figure out what you guys were doing that year.
I was in coverage, sometimes I was blitzing, sometimes I was dancing.
Yeah. It was crazy, but it was a very efficient system to be running because it stopped us and we couldn't really do that much. But
I mean, it was a headache for the offense in practice as well. I'll tell you that was.
I can only imagine.
It was like, hey, we can't run any of our normal plays out here. There are like 2 run plays we can run against this damn front.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, you have to like run scout periods just because your defense is not giving the offense regular looks.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You're not going to face this anytime, so why should we practice against it?
So imagine how good it was if you had a good D line.
And going back to the game plan, I think that was actually one of the main kind of takeaways from the scouting report was that we felt that our offensive line was better than Kristianstad's defensive line. So establishing the run game was important to us. But then, you guys had a bunch of really good linebackers, and linebackers are hard to get to when you clog the gaps and everything. So, yeah. To me, like this is strange because to me, the finals in 2020 was like a total blowout. And then I kind of watched, some time ago, I looked at the score and I was like, what, did we actually just lose by that much? But to me, it felt like it was just a one-sided game.
I mean, it looked one-sided for a while. I think we were up 3 scores at one point, but then you guys got 2 scores back and then kind of ran out.
Exactly. And you kind of go, okay, we've managed to do one onside kick. We have to do a second version of an onside kick. Like how many onside kicks do you actually have in your playbook? That was
game,
a tough game.
I'm like, shit, we're gonna lose again. Because I saw you guys' team, I'm like, shit, they're really good on offense, and like if you one can run, we screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, when you guys started scoring late in the game, I was having like flashbacks to my U19 days because we had 2 finals where we blew 3-score leads. So I was like, oh shit, no.
The final touchdown, I was glad they scored because I was going back to the sideline so I could go do the Gatorade shower. I'm like, they scored. I'm out. Because I was trying to get Josh to bench, and I'm like, can I sit? He's like, no, starting defense out. I'm like, come on, out.
No, I think it just speaks to the team that we had that year, and the guys that were on the team in terms of really believing in each other and the coaches and not, never giving up and just fighting, and we all know, when you have to change the game plan, and especially when you really remove an entire dimension of the run game, when your quarterback can't run and you're actually an option-based offense, it makes you very one-dimensional. I was so proud of the guys and how they fought, and it sucks, but losing is a part of the sport as well, and you learn from it and you get better from it. So. For me, it was an important part in my coaching process and coaching experience as well.
If you were,
we
were double your roster size. We were double your roster.
At least
we were like.
Yeah, I think we were 17.
I'm pretty sure at the final we were probably like 40 guys.
Yeah.
We had a big roster that year, so more than double probably. But
absolutely.
But yeah, that whole thing about losing being a learning experience, I think I think our most important game that season aside was probably the loss we had up in Karlstad, because it didn't really cost us anything in the end, because we still like had a better head to head, because we won by more than they did because we played them twice. But it was a huge learning experience, and it really shows like, yeah, we've got a good team, but we're far from invincible. Like this Karlstad team, they went out and beat us straight up.
Yeah. Well, I it's a tell as old as time that sometimes you have to lose to win, and that's especially important in youth sports and junior sports, because kids aren't really used to, like, one of the hardest situations to coach is when you're winning a game that you're not expecting to win. Like, how are you coaching that game? Because it might run away from you, because all of a sudden everybody's happy, and then they come back because you weren't supposed to win, but you were ahead, and you're not used to being ahead. So you have to really be kind of mindful of what's going on in the game, and how you're using the energy, so to say, on the sideline, because it can cost you a lot if you're not really.
See, as a player, I believe if you win a lot, because 2019 we were undefeated, so like it was hard like to listen to the coaches, because like, coach, we're winning every game, I'm doing everything perfect, until you face somebody that's actually better than you, then you get whipped. So that game against Karlstad showed like, okay, but we have some stuff to work on, because we destroyed the Helsingborg / Limhamn / I don't know, Skåne team. Then we beat Karlstad at home. I'm like, undefeated again. We're gonna kill everybody. Then we got destroyed by Karlstad. I'm like, oh shit, we got stuff to work on. So I think that was perfect. For the second year in a row, the undefeated team loses the finals.
From a coaching experience, you really don't want to lose ever, but it can be a great learning experience for a team. And we got it in the exact situation you'd want to have a loss, because it doesn't really matter to the standings or any of that business. And that's really what you want. It shouldn't matter for the totality of the series, but getting the loss at the right time will still teach you a lot.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think you also have to zoom out of it and kind of go, okay, why are we coaching? Why are we spending time with kids in the junior ranks? Because it's an experience for them, and they have to learn things that are going to be beneficial in sports and in life. And facing adversity, losing is a part of that. And how do you come back from that? So I think it's really. That's also one of the benefits of having coached for some time, that you start to early on notice the small signs that a team is getting complacent, maybe. So you can kind of really early on dig into that and get that cleared out, so you don't have to lose. But sometimes it doesn't really matter what the coaches say about, giving your best in tackling circuits or whatever it might be. It's actually you have to actually face it and experience the sour taste of losing for it to work.
It's getting too cocky, like it's thinking he's Patrick Mahomes throwing passes behind his back or something. Like, I hope he throws a pick so I can like chew him out for half an hour.
I'm not really one of those coaches that shoot players out, but I have a way of looking at players that makes them understand that I'm not really happy, and I think the silent treatment might work better.
You might give you a headache sometimes, because like you design a pass play, he runs for 80-yard touchdown. Like, you can't tell him like bad job because he scored an 80-yarder, but still.
I think if it all depends, but we would have a few frank conversations on the sideline, and especially going, why did you make that choice? Because sometimes, often there's something that I don't see from the sideline because I have a different perspective than the quarterback, and it helps me as well to understand. But sometimes if he didn't have, and he learned this throughout the process, but if he had a good explanation, I was fine with it because he could say they were covered or whatever. But then early on he would just go, I felt it was a good choice. It's like that's the wrong answer, man. That's the wrong answer. We're not playing Madden, and especially when you're the quarterback in the U19 level, you have to be mindful of you are the one player that cannot get hurt because the backup is not as good as you are. So it might be running out of bounds 2 yards short of the first down. Well, do that, or it might be throwing away the ball because you don't want to get sacked or whatever. So that's really a change of mindset for the quarterbacks when they're growing up because they're used to running around, doing their best, trying to get a first down, stuff like that. But that doesn't really work on a U19 and senior level. You have to be more mindful of your own health.
How much of a scare is it when your quarterback tries to hurdle somebody?
Yuan never hurdled anybody because, well, he's a bit short for that. And Max, who was the quarterback afterwards, well, he hasn't tried, and let's not give him any idea now.
Jacob did it in a tackling drill at practice more than once, and I'm pretty sure one of the times I told him, Jacob, you will never do that again. Never.
No, but there are probably worse moments when you feel like your quarterback just makes the wrong choice. But then again, they're kids, so you have to coach them.
Draw the line in U19 where you treat him still as a kid, but you wanted to do the grown up shit. That's a question because both of you coach U19, and both of them are pretty young coaches.
Yeah, I think for me there's a big difference between the first year U19 and the second year U19. Really, like they somehow mature during the off season between the first and second year in U19. So when they're turning 19, like all of a sudden they're young adults, and you have to treat them as young adults. So I think for me that's been a new experience coaching U19, and you can have really different conversations with the seniors versus the juniors in that sense. But then again, they are young and they are learning, and there are some times where you have to be more clear, but I don't think there's a general principle that you can say that you're always going to treat everybody like this. It comes down to the individual players, and some player might be really good at what they're doing. They have a clear view on how they should solve a problem, while others are more lost, and you have to guide them.
Yeah, I think I don't think there's that much of a difference coaching younger kids and older. I mean, you're trying to teach them essentially the same things in football. It's only that you start expecting a bit more from them as they get older. Like we should be able to run more complicated systems when you're 18 than when you're 15. And you should be able to make a bit more complicated reads. You should be able to memorize slightly more than you do when you're like 15.
I don't see a lot of teams running no huddle. The quarterback decides plays in U15. Or some teams maybe. I think Limham could pull that off.
I think you can.
Limham's U15 a couple years ago could pull that off probably.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll say this. When I was coaching U13 in 2011, we started off the season with 4 plays, 2 runs and 2 passes.
Yeah.
We ended up having 23 plays out of four formations because the kids were really good and they kind of learned along the way. We didn't start with that. We started with a small playbook, but then we're like, okay, you guys are really like, you want to try this? And they loved it. So I think you should never underestimate the value of incremental changes, and over time that can create a really big difference.
Yeah, I think I had a U15 team kind of like that in 2018, I think it was, where we had a really small roster. No, you were in Karlshamn, man. No, wait. No, you were U17, man. You weren't U15 back then. you were last year U17 aside.
Age is hard sometimes.
But anyway, that 2018 team, I remember I had maybe a dozen U15 guys, 12, 13 guys, who all were reliable practice guys. They'd show up almost every day, and a few of them had been playing for a long time already. And it was this whole thing where maybe we only started with a few plays, but we could keep adding on because, well, they were good. They were executing the stuff we were doing, and we got more creative in practice, and we added more stuff. So, and that can happen at any level.
Oh yeah, definitely so. I mean, the 2020 U19 where we were talking about, we had the same thing. We started off with one playbook, and we kind of went on from there and added layers upon layers. So,
Felt like.
yeah, we could do a lot, but I think that's just what Andre is saying. It's smart coaching because you have to. Kids want to be challenged and they want to feel that they're developing, and if you're not attributing to those needs, like they're probably gonna feel that it's not as fun anymore. And then of course you always have to be mindful of that you're teaching the kids the right fundamentals and the right basics and the right technique, but you can do that going and also like add on things that you're doing. Yeah. So I think that's smart, and I think all coaches should, you should never underestimate how much kids can learn, really, and that you sometimes forget that the season is also a learning experience, and you don't have to look the same the first game as the last game. You can actually use that 2, 3, 4 month period to get better and to increase the knowledge of the game and so forth.
Exactly, and I also think it's a big difference if you're coaching a group of guys for the first time, I've coached essentially the same guys since they were 14, and now they're in U19. Like there's a big difference depending on the group, and the situation I had last year, I had I think the 2 age groups that I'd coached a bunch, and then one or 2 age groups that I'd either coached a little or not at all. Then we were suddenly in a situation where, okay, we have to go back to the start and install everything anew, because we can't really start with this huge expansive playbook when I haven't coached almost half the guys,
Yeah, I fully understand. We had the same situation last year. I had coached a few of the guys that played in the 2021 finals for a few years. I coached them since they were in U17, so like 4 years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're switching gears, and a lot of the guys are new to me, and I've never coached them before, and so it's a new team, and you don't know the kids.
Aside, should we get to the last questions?
You've heard them before, right, Coach? Do you plan on an answer for them?
I have thought about answers when I've heard other people respond to them, so we'll see if I remember them.
Okay, let's start with the first one then. What is your favorite football concept?
That's a good question. I think from the defensive side, I really like the 3-3 stack because it gives me a headache as an offensive coordinator, and it makes it possible to do a lot of fun
stack?
things.
Explain to the people who don't know football like we do.
So 3 down linemen and 3 linebackers who are usually stacked over the down linemen. And you can, like, I would probably run it having the outside guys, the exterior D linemen in like a 4 or 4-eye technique, so they would just be head up on the tackle or even just inside, because I think that makes it even harder. And then you usually send at least one linebacker, or it could be a safety, every snap as a blitz. So you have to understand where they're coming from and how they're going to adjust their front. So it's, as an O-line guy, that's a headache. I hated playing against a 3-3 stack.
Is there a specific blitz, stunt, or concept out of the 3-3 stack that you hate facing? Or that's your favorite if you were calling the defense, maybe?
Yeah, depending on the personnel. But I think every time you can kind of have a rush that can actually play like a linebacker, so you could drop him, and you can kind of use maybe 2 blitzes, just because you're actually, instead of, you're still sending 4, but you're dropping 1 from the line and you're bringing 2 linebackers. So that would probably be one of the things. But then again, I think all movement on the defensive line, all stunts, like a nose going from one gap to the other, and a rush going outside in or inside out, I think all of those, like, you know, the text stunt that's been popularized by the Buccaneers, where you have like a rush or nose going one way and the end going the other way. I think those are efficient. So yeah, the 3-3 stack. And if you're looking at the offense, you know, I love the power. I think power run game, just a power play, it's phenomenal. Perfect play action play as well. You know, it's great.
Down, pull around.
What's your favorite football
Exactly. Well, the all blue New England Patriots is fantastic. I think that's a really cool one. The color rush that was a few years ago. And also the all white Oregon Ducks with like the silver helmet and the feathers on the shoulders. Really nice one. So yeah, I think those 2 would probably be the ones that I really enjoy. And of course, I think the all blue national team jerseys and pants are fantastic, especially with a small detail. You see actually the flag on the side of the shoulders, which is a nice addition. So I think Contact Sports did a fantastic job with those guys, those ones. Yeah,
Two-part question here, Coach. Try to bully one of your team players here. What is the least skillful position in football?
The head coach. In a good coaching staff, the head coach he needs no skill at all. He's just bare.
He's kind of useless if you have
You
a
have
great
an OC
staff.
and a DC.
Under
What's the job of a head coach?
They oversee the coordinators, and they're the spokesperson. They're the spokesperson of the team. That's what the head coach does.
In the junior national team, I'm like head of planning and logistics. Like that's what I do. I do schedules and I do logistics. So like when we had the selection camps a few weeks ago, I kind of started thinking about it, and then I thought, what if I get sick and I can't be on during the camp? It's like, well, there's no difference. Nothing is going to change. I have no place in the team. Like the guys are going to do it themselves.
Just the face of the team.
Yeah. That's probably
just the face of the team.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly. Probably.
What's the most skillful position
then? I think in a 2-gap system, the nose tackle, because it's a combination of size and technique, and it's really hard to find one of those players that can actually handle 2 gaps at the same time. But I think the corners are phenomenal. So the corners would be, if you outside of that, a corner is really a very hard position to play, especially with the rules as they are right now.
Good answers. Good answers. The head coach one was actually, like I didn't expect that answer, but it's a really good answer actually.
It's cheating a bit, but I'll buy it.
Your question now, Andre.
Yeah. What's your favorite position in football? And you're not allowed to say the
Not
position
head
you
coach.
mainly played.
Yeah, I'm playing the role of head coach. That's probably a good explanation of what I'm doing. No, but I think the hybrid H-back tight end type of guys that have come about these past few years, like it's a fullback, H-back, tight end type of guy. I really like that position. I think it brings a lot of dynamics to the offense.
Honestly, as a player, that's probably my favorite position to play as well.
No, I can imagine you can do everything.
Yeah.
You can catch, you can block, you can run. Like,
Go in motion, do all
Yeah.
types of weird shit.
yeah, exactly. And nobody really knows how to account for you. Like, are you a running back? Is it like 20 personnel, or are you a tight end? So it's 11 personnel. Like, nobody really knows. And
That cheats. Like, what position is he? Who doesn't say any position?
I think
Depends.
I think it depends on the coach
Yeah.
and the system. I mean, and how you mainly use the guy. But
I think in the NFL, they're usually fullbacks or tight ends.
yeah,
But we're not really that strict on positions. So it could be a wide receiver because he can he can catch, and especially running backs are usually one that will run with the ball and not just like so. Yeah, I would probably designate it as a wide receiver if I would select.
yeah, and I would probably say a tight end mainly, but
Yeah.
it depends. I know Limham has a receiver, Gustav, playing that role, and I mean, when I was playing it here in Kristianstad, I was kind of playing the true tight end role. So like, you can have different kinds of players there depending on exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have a guy that can actually play like a true tight end that actually attached to the O line and be used in the run game as with double teams and stuff, like that's a huge addition to your offense because those guys are hard to find and very hard to handle as a defense.
So next question here: best player you ever played against? Or if you're mainly a coach, you could answer the best player you ever coached against. See, we switch questions here with coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I'll give you two answers. The best player I ever played against was Olof Lemström, the Jämtland Republicans defensive line guy, and I think he was the defensive coordinator for Karlstad for a year.
I got flamed on Twitter because I didn't know it. Isn't he a D line for Karlstad?
No, he's originally from Jämtland Republicans. So he played with Jämtland during the few years that they were really good. They played in at least two national titles, I think, with the U19. And then he moved to Karlstad and was playing in Karlstad, and I think he coached in Karlstad as well. So I faced him in when I played U19, and we played in the national championship. So he was really good, like one of the early, really athletic guys that you could, that could really play. Going back to the best player I've ever coached against, that's a good question. I think this was probably in U15, like in 2013. Sebastian Jönsson was the quarterback for that U15 team. And that U15 team in 2013 was just phenomenal. Like they were outstanding, and he was unstoppable. So I think he was probably the best.
Kind of a funny story about that team. They didn't really have many qualified coaches for their team. I think one was a former player. And the other was just a parent of one of the players.
Yeah.
Who had he hadn't played or done anything like that at all. And that was it.
The head coach was Bengt, maybe?
Yeah, I think that was Bengt.
Yeah. And then there was a former I think he was playing. That was also a coach.
Krudus was also coaching that team.
Exactly. Magnus, maybe?
Maybe, but I think it was mainly Bengt and Krudus. And
yeah,
for much of their season, the players were essentially doing everything on their own on the field. Like, I'm pretty sure Sebastian was calling his own plays for most of the season.
Yeah,
but
possibly.
But for that Duke's tourney there in 2013, my brother, who was originally kind of coaching the U17s, he noticed that, like, hey, our U15s over there, they don't have anyone calling plays. So he kind of just walked over to them and started helping out the offense there. And it ended up with him being essentially the offensive coordinator for that gold medal team.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I think they ran, like, they were the first team, and actually that Kristianstad team had a great effect on Tabby because they were the first team to run the veer, and they ran it really well, and they had a great running back as well. So it was like you had to pick your poison.
Shaheen Uzgur, he was.
Yeah, there you go.
He played. He's played JUCO as well over in the States in California. So yeah, really good player.
Phenomenal in terms of balance and agility, like really hard to tackle. So so that really affected us in terms of we saw the veer the first time, and then we were like, oh, that's a good play. We should probably run it as well. So we kind of took that into our playbook. And funny story actually, when we faced the U15 in Dukes, and because that team, they had the receivers like split super wide, like it was 4 or 5 yards from the sideline. Regardless where the ball was placed. And we were like, okay, the quarterback can't throw this far. Like, it's impossible. So if it's on one of the hashes, we're not going to cover the other receiver. We're just going to put our corner like 5 yards inside and just leave him out because he's not going to throw it to it. He's not going to make it. So that's how we played the defense in the final. That was a tough final as well in Duke's tourney.
So many good games between Tabby and Kristianstad in every age group. Aside, you have a final question.
/ coached against.
The 2019 Austrian team in the European Championship, like they were
phenomenal.
Fantastic. Yeah, they were the next level type of team, so they were really good.
That's it for our questions. Any final thoughts before we end this podcast, guys?
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and it's been a good chat. And once again, I really appreciate what you guys are doing with the podcast, and really hope that a lot of people come out on April 9th and support the national team in Kristianstad.
Yeah, exactly. Best of luck for you and the entire junior national team. The game kicks off at 1400 in Kristianstad Football Arena. You can be there 2 hours earlier, though, because at 12 p.m. we start a tailgate. I'm going to please go to that. It's going to be some fun events. I think they're going to have a bouncy house for the children. They're going to be selling burgers, and Contact Sports are going to be there selling national team merch. So it's going to be a lot to do there. So check that out. And again, best of luck in the game.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, thank you for listening. Please make sure to check out our Instagram account. We're at Gridirons of Europe. Follow our Twitter account. We're at Gridirons Europe. And go check out our new YouTube channel. Just search for Gridirons of Europe on YouTube, and you will find us. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. Bye-bye.